Last time, I did include 7 words amidst a few thousand as an explanation for why I've played a lot of this game. The gameplay it's fun, but, you know, I should probably expand on that. Now, obviously, this is a Bethesda game, and as such, my experience will be very, very different to yours or anyone else's, really. It's Bethesda's simultaneous curse and blessing. They're so modular that you can really make the game into whatever you like, but the base game is kinda lacking. If you want to turn the game into a brutally difficult wilderness survival, there are mods to accompany that. And if you want to instead focus on things that YouTube will nuke my channel for talking about, God knows that's on the Nexus too. This game's survival mode is a hell of a lot better than the hardcore mode of New Vegas, with one massive caveat. The main change is that you can't save manually, and can only save with sleeping, and this does wonders for tension. Combine this with a mod to add a bunch more random encounters across the Commonwealth, and you have an excellent survival horror game in your hands. Survival makes some other changes, but most are entirely superficial. Having to worry about your hunger or thirst is basically a joke, but you'll want a mod to change how it works because the way it's handled in vanilla is hilariously stupid. Items quench your needs based on how many caps that they're worth and have nothing to do with their actual nutritional value. This creates odd situations where you can down 5 radroaches worth of meat and still be starving, but cook one and you're just totally fine. There is one other significant change that actually matters, and that's how damage is handled. The different difficulties in Fallout 4 have different damage ratios. On Very Hard, for example, you take 2 times as much damage and you deal half. Survival makes you deal 3/4 damage, but you take 4 times as much. I can't recommend playing with this. It's unnecessarily painful when combined with the inability to save, but like I said, this game is so modular you can sign yourself up for whatever flavor of CBT that you personally like. Regardless of what mods you include, there is no way to fix this game's movement. It's horribly sticky and feels like you're constantly slogging through molasses. I don't know how Bethesda has managed to consistently make the most god-awful movement it's possible to create in a first-person game. Add a PUBG vaulting system, for God's sake. It's long overdue. Who knows how Starfield is going to one-up this game in Skyrim. Maybe pressing space will crash and uninstall the game. Something Starfield better not get rid of, though, is the weapon crafting system. It's genuinely really good, and more games need to steal how robust it is. The fact that you can take practically any gun you find into the game and mod the hell out of it into whatever specialized thing you want is really cool. Unfortunately let down in practice by the default game selection of firearms being pretty terrible. They're all super blandly animated, visually uninteresting, and have almost no punch. The hunting rifle really has the worst of all of it. Seriously, no sane person puts the bolt on the left side. Trying to reload it like this would break your goddamn hand. I also kinda like the legendary system because it integrates well into this idea. The drops from legendary enemies are weapons or armor scaled to your level with completely random effects. You could get a Destroyer of Worlds right as you leave the vault, in theory. It always keeps you on your toes and makes you wonder what could drop next, but the amount of effects could have seriously used some pruning. So many of them are hot garbage and it ends up just clogging the pool, but it kind of has to be like this or every legendary enemy would drop insanely overpowered gear. It does feel like the weapon crafting system is an iteration or 2 away from being finished. Here's an example. You walk up to Tinker Tom and you go, "Hey, nice suppressor, can I buy it?" You have to buy the entire rifle from him, go to a weapons bench, make a worse muzzle, and then hand him back the gun. If you could buy individual weapon mods off a weapon in a shop, this would be fixed completely. Bethesda has gone on record saying that for every game they basically throw all of their previous design out the window, and while I think this philosophy is on par with burning down your house every time mortgage payments roll around, it really did help when it came to perks and leveling. I'm gonna be honest, I really do not like the skill system of the previous games. It feels arbitrary, you don't really feel any growth from level to level, and some skills give you literally no benefits until you get them to certain numbers. The only exciting part of leveling is when you've got a perk every other level, which was fun. Fallout 4 made the, in my opinion, incredibly sensible choice of cutting out the middleman and just replacing skills wholly with perk choices. A lot of stuff is viable too, so Good job. The removal of speech as a skill was also a good decision, but unfortunately they overcorrected a little bit and also removed role-playing. This fucking dialogue wheel. Look, everyone knows this design is straight out of the darkest corner of hell, so I'm not gonna harp on it, but man is it bad. I do actually really like the voice protagonist though. I know some people weren't really fans, but I think both performances are really well done and add a lot of character.
War never changes.
But when I went back to play the fan remake of Point Lookout from Fallout 3, it removed both of these things. You're back to the old way of how dialogue worked, and your character doesn't ever speak. And you know what? It is so much better. This made me realize how nice it was to be able to walk up to half the people in New Vegas and have the option to ask about their entire life story if you're interested. In 4, you get one predetermined, random question. In 4, there aren't really a lot of times where what you say matters. Most dialogue loops to the same response after one line, and branching dialogue is really, really rare. I was actually genuinely surprised when Father cast me out of the Institute after I failed Bunker Hill and insulted him a bunch. There are only a handful of times where you can, say, talk someone down, but you wouldn't really want to anyway. With how much XP you get from kills, the sole survivor is incentivized to be a straight-up mass murderer, and doing anything except excessive violence is always suboptimal. New Vegas gave you like 6 XP per kill, and a lot more for skill checks and thousands of XP for quest rewards, so you were actually incentivized to roleplay instead of slaughtering everything in your path. They also removed Intelligence 1 dialogue, which is kind of like if the next Elder Scrolls game rolled around and it just didn't have Nords in it. In fairness, Fallout 3 and New Vegas also had way less of it, but it was still there in some respect. Some of the most absolutely hilarious dialogue in all of Fallout is locked behind 1 intelligence, and I want it back, goddammit.
Oh, lovely. They've sent me a moron.
Sorry, I know that this isn't the writing video anymore, but this one interaction from Fallout 2 makes me so sad that the Enclave isn't in Fallout 4 at all.
The President of the United fucking States of America. Who do you think I was talking about? The fuck? Who is it? What? I should kick your fucking ass. Who is this?
Make this guy the protagonist of the next game, please. Karma was also wholly removed in 4, but in practice it was replaced with companion affinity. I'm gonna be frank, this is way, way better. In New Vegas, I felt very uncomfortable walking around the territory of abused, traumatized, and frankly kind of helpless junkies, lining up shots on them one by one and vaporizing them before they could acknowledge what was happening, and then seeing, you gained karma. I effectively went and committed some genocide for the NCR and then got told, good job! In 4, the moral compass you're being judged against is wholly dictated around a person with their own beliefs and experiences. If that same situation were to be judged by a companion, someone like Curie would probably be pretty unnerved by your reckless disregard for human life, whereas X6 would have been all for it. Overall, I think Fallout 4 is a really excellent survival game with decent shooting mechanics and a really nice vibe. Especially compared to New Vegas, the gunplay is a lot better. But there is an argument to be made about New Vegas and Fallout 3 having intentionally clunky combat to force you to specialize in it. Whichever way you swing on that, personally, I'll take objectively better gunplay over this. Fallout 4 is definitely the least lonely of all the Fallout games, and I think this is because the companions are so well done. It's fun to scavenge, to get by the skin of your teeth, and to develop friendships with your besties. There's a lot of memorable stuff to be had here, like the arrival of the Brotherhood, which totally floored 13-year-old me.
Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing.
Fallout 4 just has a god-fucking-awful main plot and a very undeveloped setting. There's a reason that people forgetting Sean exists as a running gag. I might talk about the DLC one day. Just in case I don't, I have to point out that they totally fucked up the audio quality of Stephen Russell as Nick in Far Harbor somehow, even though he sounds totally fine as Dima.
I didn't even know who I was rescuing, just stumbled on a crying girl and 4 toughs.
We're not answering any more questions until you play straight with us.
It's a shame, too, because he's the protagonist of that DLC way more than you are. It also soft-locked itself at the very end of the DLC, which was super cool and awesome. YouTube viewer try to understand that I'm not bragging about my playtime challenge, impossible.